because it looked like Caitlin Clark went to Chicago and took the city over. It looked like she took the city over.
People are showing up just to see if just this witness Caitlin Clark. It's like she's the damn Beatles.
Angel, pray up, me bound Reese, I hope you listening. It looks like that line was for my precious Cece. How she pulled up in your...
Everyone thought the Indiana Fever were finished, and not just quietly doubted, completely written off. The headlines after Caitlin Clark's groin injury weren't hopeful. They were brutal. Sports anchors declared the Fever dead without Clark. Podcasts mocked them. Social media lit up with memes, and even casual fans began treating Indiana like a failed experiment that had temporarily thrived off one player's stardom.
Caitlin Clark spent 20 minutes signing autographs. She made her way 2/3 of the arena. She signed literally hundreds of autographs. She signed hundreds of autographs. And if you guys didn't see that game today, there were as many Fever fans as there were.
The narrative was loud. No Clark, no playoffs. The team had just lost back-to-back games, and the momentum that once seemed promising had suddenly stalled. But the opponent they were about to face didn't just smell weakness. They came in expecting a massacre. The Las Vegas Aces, the defending champions, the same team that walked into Gainbridge Fieldhouse with experience, swagger, and a proven star in Aza Wilson, who had spent months listening to chatter about Caitlin Clark instead of her own dominance.
So Caitlin Clark is not playing the game. And like, by the way, like, people didn't know whether or not Caitlin was playing that game until the very end. There are hundreds of fans that were there to see Caitlin Clark play on the off chance Caitlin Clark would be able to sign something. She was there. She spent like 20 minutes autographing everything.
This game was meant to be Vegas's flex, a beatdown to prove that experience always trumps hype. And with Clark sidelined in street clothes, the script felt pre-written. The Fever were supposed to fold. They were supposed to get exposed. What nobody saw coming, not the analysts, not the crowd, and certainly not the Aces, was that Indiana had something else brewing. A refusal to give up. A spark just waiting for the right ignition. Because while the spotlight had left, something else entered the locker room that night. Fire. And it didn't come from Caitlin Clark. It came from every player who'd been told they were nothing without her.
Kelsey Mitchell, 7 for 10 from the three-point line, off the start, 8 points quick. You knew, oh, Kelsey Mitchell's hot today. Oh, Kelsey Mitchell's hot today. This might be her game. Let's keep the hot hand in. Let's keep the hot hand going. Let's set her some big-body screens, get her open. Kelsey Mitchell, she did it all. 7 for 10 from the three-point line. She got to the rack. She got to the free throw line, carving up the defense, looking like a little snake, how she just slithers in and out of that defense. Kelsey Mitchell, salute to you.
There's a different kind of confidence that champions walk with. It's heavy, practiced, and worn like armor. The Las Vegas Aces carried that swagger into Gainbridge Fieldhouse. You could see it during warm-ups, the smirks, the loose shoulders, the pregame laughter. They weren't nervous. They were waiting for the beatdown to start.
I'm beginning to suspect the Indiana Fever are a better team than the Chicago Sky. Don't ask me why I believe that or think that. It's just a sneaking suspicion that I have. I mean, it could be the fact that the Fever spank them every time they play. Could be that. Maybe it's that. I mean, you know, you can date back to last year, but this year the Fever spanked the Sky in the season opener.
In their eyes, this was an easy win. Caitlin Clark wasn't playing, and the Fever had just dropped 2 straight games. For Aza Wilson, who had heard her name eclipsed by Clark's all season long, this game had an edge to it. She wasn't just coming to win, she wanted to dominate. The Aces wanted to make a statement, not to the standings, but to the league. We're still the standard. It was all there. The mindset, the matchups, the timing. No one could have predicted that instead of rolling over, the Indiana Fever would rise up with the kind of hunger you can't coach.
Might be scorching hot right now. You have been so good on the road lately. 6 straight games, 24 points a game. How are you off to another hot start in a hostile environment?
I think about just staying in rhythm. And when I stay in rhythm, about being aggressive. So as long as I'm aggressive and being myself, they make it easy.
And that's the thing about teams who've been doubted for too long. When they finally snap, they don't just compete, they attack. The Fever didn't show up to survive. They came to flip the script. Every player on that roster had heard the whispers, that they were nothing without Caitlin, that this was just a one-woman team playing dress-up. But as the Aces settled into their rhythm, what they didn't realize was that the Fever had been preparing for this moment in silence. And when it finally came, when the intensity dialed up, Las Vegas wasn't ready, because confidence without effort gets exposed quickly. And that's exactly what was about to happen.
She lit them up. I mean, she was on fire. On fire. She couldn't miss. I mean, everything was in the flow of the offense. Effortless, man. We got to give love to Kelsey Mitchell. 12 of 19 from the floor, 7 of 10 from 3, 35 points. Straight stirring the pot. Stirring the pot. She was cooking their ass today. Kelsey Mitchell was on one. She was on one. She was a plus 25 for the game. The Chicago Sky are a flat out joke. This team is terrible.
Kelsey Mitchell had a lot to prove, and she knew it. This was her team long before Caitlin Clark arrived, and suddenly she found herself standing in the shadow of one of the biggest names in basketball history. Now, with Clark on the bench in street clothes, the pressure was squarely on her shoulders. And early on, it wasn't pretty. Shot after shot missed its mark. Her body language began to tighten. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't celebrating. She looked tense, and the fans noticed. The arena, which had started out hopeful, began to shift into uneasy silence every time Mitchell missed another jumper.
I actually feel bad for Angel Reese at this point, and it has nothing to do with like how she's handled herself or anything. It's just simply Caitlin Clark is so much better than Angel Reese at basketball that it doesn't feel fair.
Yeah, I think Angel Reese is struggling with the fact that Caitlin Clark is better at her best thing than she is.
She's better at everything.
And
she had a triple-double. She's tied for the third most triple-doubles in WNBA history, and she's played 50 games.
Yeah.
The critics had been saying it all season. Mitchell can't lead. She disappears in big moments. And in those opening minutes, it felt like those words were coming true. Every miss felt heavier, the kind of performance that usually gets players pulled from the court. But Mitchell wasn't just struggling with her shot, she was carrying the burden of expectations, media scrutiny, and leadership all at once. Yet instead of giving in to the noise, she stayed in the game. Not because the numbers justified it, but because her coach believed in something deeper than stats. And what came next wasn't just a hot streak, it was a transformation. One that would leave the crowd speechless and the aces scrambling for answers.
I think this what means when you walk into your trap and take over. She in your city. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I forgot about that tweet. I forgot about the tweet. Walk in your trap, take over your trap. I just realized that. I'm like, oh my God, there's no way they can.
It takes courage to stand behind a struggling player, especially in a must-win game against the reigning champions. But Coach Stephanie White did exactly that. While fans groaned and social media questioned why Mitchell was still on the floor, White pulled her aside and spoke with calm authority. No long lecture, no clipboard, just 8 words that shifted the tone of the entire game. Let it fly. It's going to fall. That wasn't just encouragement, it was belief. The kind of belief that reaches a player's soul. Because in that moment, White didn't see Mitchell's missed shots. She saw the spark waiting to ignite.
This is why I say, Angel Reese, you need to stop trying to attach yourself to this girl at every turn, because you cannot measure up. You don't have as many followers you have on Instagram. That is great. I will not take away from the fact that you are one of the bigger brands in the WNBA. You are a star in your own right, but you are not Caitlin Clark. It's a difference. It's a difference from De'Aaron Fox being at the All-Star game and Steph Curry being there. It's a difference. I'm sorry, it just is. You need to stop trying to attach yourself to this girl at every turn, because she has officially come to your trap and taken over your trap.
She reminded Mitchell who she was before the slump. The scorer, the leader, the heart of the team. And Mitchell responded, not by changing her game, but by embracing it. She started attacking again, driving hard into the paint, pulling up with confidence, and moving like the floor belonged to her. Teammates started feeding off her energy. The crowd could feel it. The aces could feel it. This wasn't the same Mitchell from the first half. This was a leader who had been waiting for the moment to reclaim her spotlight. And with every possession, that moment came closer, until the floor belonged to her again. By the time the fourth quarter began, something had changed. Kelsey Mitchell wasn't forcing shots anymore. She was commanding the floor. Her footwork was sharp, her drives were explosive, and her vision opened up the game like a chessboard. She didn't just score, she controlled the entire flow of the offense. Every possession ran through her, and the aces couldn't stop it. What had started as a night full of frustration turned into a masterclass in mental toughness. Mitchell scored 9 of her 21 points in the final frame, clutch baskets that pushed Indiana ahead when Vegas tried to rally. But it wasn't just her scoring that stunned the crowd. She began facilitating too, dishing out assists, setting up teammates in rhythm, and making smart, unselfish reads. The fans who had quietly doubted her earlier were now on their feet. Teammates high-fived her after every drive. And when the Fever pulled away in those final moments, it was clear. Kelsey Mitchell had silenced every critic with one of the grittiest performances of the season. The narrative was no longer, "Where's Caitlin Clark?" It had become, "This is still Mitchell's house." While the spotlight remained glued to Mitchell's bounce back, something else was brewing on the perimeter. And her name was Sophie Cunningham. For most of the season, she had flown just under the radar. A spark off the bench, a reliable rotation piece. But what she unleashed against the Aces wasn't just a good game. It was a statement. From the first quarter to the final buzzer, Sophie played like a woman possessed. She moved without hesitation, shot with zero fear, and brought an energy that infected the entire building. She wasn't just scoring points, she was breaking runs. Every time Las Vegas began to claw back, Sophie was there to silence the rally with a perfectly timed three. And these weren't accidental shots. They were in rhythm, in flow, and pure confidence. By the end of the night, Cunningham had gone 3 for 4 from deep and dropped 15 points that felt more like 30 based on when and how she scored. But what made it even more impressive wasn't just the efficiency, it was the timing. She hit her threes when the Aces were gaining steam, crushing their momentum like a hammer to glass. It was clinical, it was cold-blooded, and it was exactly what the Fever needed. The league had been so focused on Clark, they forgot Indiana had another sharpshooter waiting to explode. And on that night, Cunningham didn't just play, she announced herself. Let's talk facts, because Cunningham wasn't just having a good week. Heading into this game, she was on one of the hottest three-point stretches in the entire WNBA. Over her last 6 games, she had averaged nearly 14 points a night while shooting a jaw-dropping 58% from beyond the arc. That's not good, that's elite. League-leading elite. And she wasn't just padding stats during blowouts or getting easy looks. These were high-pressure, late-clock, defender-in-your-face threes, and she was burying them with consistency. Coaches around the league were beginning to take notice. Game plans were shifting, double teams were creeping in her direction, and against a championship-caliber squad like the Aces, that kind of shooting should have cooled down under pressure. Instead, she stayed hot. She wasn't just hitting threes, she was stretching the floor, crashing the boards, and forcing Vegas to adapt to her. Head coach Stephanie White praised her energy, her rebounding, and her versatility, calling her a true two-way piece who opens the court for everyone else. And she was right. With Cunningham hitting shots, defenders couldn't collapse on Mitchell or Howard. The floor opened up, the ball moved faster, and the Fever played with rhythm we haven't seen since June. Fans on social media started calling her the front-runner for 6th Player of the Year. And honestly, it's hard to argue. Cunningham had officially evolved from role player to weapon. Aza Wilson is a beast. There's no debate about that. She's the reigning MVP, a champion, and a consistent force on both ends of the floor. But on this night, under these lights, something looked different. As the Fever kept punching back, you could see the frustration begin to creep into her body language. She still got her touches, but they weren't easy. Every post-up was contested. Every drive came with physicality. And worst of all, she had to watch Sophie Cunningham, a player the league rarely headlines, tear apart her team's game plan like paper. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Aces came in confident, maybe even cocky. And now, suddenly, the Fever, without Caitlin Clark, were making them look vulnerable. For a team as decorated as Las Vegas, that kind of exposure stings. And for a player like Aza, who's used to controlling the narrative, losing that grip is even harder. But this wasn't about slandering her name. It was about showing what happens when a team like Indiana decides they've had enough of being overlooked. Wilson did her best to rally her squad, but the energy shift was too strong. The Fever were playing with something intangible, something that no scouting report can prepare for: belief. And on this night, it swallowed everything Vegas tried to throw at them. With under a minute to go, the Fever held a narrow lead, but everyone in the building knew how dangerous Las Vegas could be. A few stops, a lucky bounce, and the Aces could flip this entire game in seconds. And that's when Ari McDonald stepped into the moment like it was made for her. She hadn't taken a single shot in the 4th quarter, not one. But when the ball found her at the top of the arc, with the shot clock ticking down and the game on the line, she didn't hesitate. She stepped back, she rose up, and she let it fly. Swish. Net only. It was the kind of shot that breaks a team's will. A fearless dagger 3 that sucked the air out of Vegas's comeback hopes. The crowd erupted. Clark jumped off the bench, arms raised in disbelief. It was over. McDonald finished the game a perfect 3 for 3 from deep, with 9 points and 4 assists in just 22 minutes. But none of that mattered more than that one shot. That one moment that flipped close win into statement victory. When players hit those shots, it doesn't just change the scoreboard, it changes the identity of the team. It tells everyone, we don't need a hero every night. We have killers waiting in the wings. Even though Caitlin Clark was in street clothes that night, you wouldn't have known it from the way she moved on the sidelines. She wasn't sulking, she wasn't quiet. She was locked in, cheering, shouting, fist-pumping, pointing. Every time a teammate made a play, Clark was right there, hyping them up. And when McDonald's 3 ripped through the net, she leapt off the bench like it was her own buzzer beater. That's what real leadership looks like. Injured or not, Clark understood her role, to keep her team's energy up and make sure they believed in themselves. And guess what? They did. You could feel it. Her fire from the bench ignited the players on the floor. They didn't play like a team missing their superstar. They played like a team inspired by her. Clark's presence wasn't about stat sheets or plays, it was about passion. And on this night, that passion mattered more than anything she could have done with a ball in her hands. There's a moment in every game when a crowd goes from being fans to becoming fuel. That shift happened the second Ari McDonald's dagger 3 dropped through the net. It wasn't just loud, it was electric. Gainbridge Fieldhouse erupted into chaos. You could feel the vibrations in the floorboards. Strangers were hugging, fans were screaming, grown men had tears in their eyes. Because this wasn't just a win, it was a moment of validation. This fan base, for weeks, had been watching the national media laugh at them, mock them, label them as a one-player team. The excitement around Caitlin Clark had drawn millions of new eyes, but it also brought pressure. People started treating the Fever like a background prop in the Caitlin show. But on this night, the narrative shattered. The crowd wasn't just watching basketball, they were witnessing a rebirth. Every scream from the fans echoed with pride. Every cheer wasn't just support, it was defiance. They weren't clapping because they were surprised. They were clapping because they always believed this team could do it, with or without the national spotlight. And when the buzzer finally sounded, the noise didn't stop. It carried long after the final point. This wasn't just a celebration, it was a declaration. We're more than just a storyline. We're building something real. Championship teams are built to handle pressure. But what happened in the final quarter wasn't just a loss, it was a psychological collapse. As Indiana surged forward with energy, pace, and confidence, you could see the Aces unraveling. Their body language said it all. Shoulders slumped, hands on hips, empty stares toward the bench. Aza Wilson, who started the night ready to dominate, looked exhausted. Not physically, mentally. The Fever didn't just beat the Aces on the scoreboard, they beat them in their minds. Every time Vegas tried to swing the momentum, they were met with resistance. A screen, a contested jumper, a hand in the lane, a clutch bucket from Sophie or Mitchell. Vegas expected to walk into Indiana and roll. They expected the home crowd to get quiet. Instead, they got smothered. They got hunted, and it was clear they weren't ready for that energy. It's rare to see a team of this caliber lose control, but that's what Indiana did. They rattled the champs. And maybe, for the first time this season, the league realized that the Aces aren't as untouchable as they once seemed. While Mitchell and Sophie were lighting up the scoreboard, there was another star quietly doing the dirty work, and that was Natasha Howard. The stat sheet will tell you she dropped 18 points, snagged 13 rebounds, and added 3 steals. But the real story goes way beyond numbers. Howard controlled the interior like a general. She wasn't just grabbing boards, she was owning the paint. Every loose ball seemed to end up in her hands. Every second chance opportunity was erased before it could begin. She played with an edge, a physicality, and a level of focus that anchored the entire defense. But what truly stood out was how her hustle translated into rhythm for the entire team. After every rebound, she was sprinting the floor. After every stop, she was pointing, communicating, leading. Her presence allowed others to shine, because she was doing the heavy lifting in the shadows. The Aces couldn't get comfortable in the paint. Every time they tried to post up, Howard met them with resistance. And while others were hitting highlights, she was building the foundation for the win. It's no exaggeration to say that without Howard's dominance inside, this game could have gone sideways. But with her on the court, the Fever had stability. They had grit. And they had one of the most underrated players in the league playing like a true anchor. For weeks, the Indiana Fever had been a team searching for its identity. With Caitlin Clark's arrival, expectations exploded overnight. But pressure doesn't always build chemistry. Sometimes it exposes the cracks, and yet, ironically, it was Clark's absence that brought this team together. This game showed what Indiana could be as a unit: unselfish, gritty, smart, and resilient. This was the first time they truly looked like a team that didn't revolve around one name. It wasn't about who scored the most or who got the headlines. It was about defense. It was about rotations. It was about showing up for each other on every possession. Everyone played their role to perfection. Whether it was Mitchell rediscovering her clutch gene, Sophie stretching the floor, Howard owning the glass, or McDonald delivering the dagger, this team worked in sync. They didn't force plays, they flowed, and it felt like a breakthrough. Because for the first time this season, the Indiana Fever weren't waiting for a savior. They were playing like they already had everything they needed. That kind of identity, it doesn't just win games, it builds culture. And that's what we witnessed: the birth of a culture shift in Indiana basketball. Some games are worth more than the win column. This wasn't just about going 13-12. This was about momentum, about belief, about rewriting the way the world views the Indiana Fever. This win didn't just shake the standings, it rattled the entire WNBA. The Fever didn't just beat the defending champions, they beat them without the most hyped rookie the league has ever seen. And that fact changes everything. It silences the idea that this team is a one-woman show. It erases the doubt that they're too young, too raw, too inconsistent. And it proves something far more important: that they can adapt, grow, and rise when it matters. This was the game that flipped the narrative. Suddenly, Indiana is no longer just the team with Caitlin Clark. They're the team that can win without her. And when she returns, she's not rejoining a desperate squad. She's stepping back into a machine that just figured out how to win on its own. That kind of timing is dangerous for the rest of the league. Because now, the Fever don't just have one star, they have belief. And that changes everything. So now the question isn't, can the Fever survive without Caitlin Clark? It's, how scary are they with her? This team just beat the defending champs without their superstar, using heart, hustle, and raw chemistry. They didn't fold under pressure. They thrived in it. And that changes everything. For the fans who doubted them, for the league that underestimated them, and for every player who thought this was just a hype train, the Fever just flipped the narrative. They're not here to ride the momentum. They're here to build a legacy. Mitchell proved her leadership. Cunningham proved her clutch gene. McDonald proved her poise. Howard proved her value. And Clark? She proved that leadership doesn't stop at the sideline. This was the game that changed everything. And if you're as fired up as we are, comment FVERCOOKED down below and let us know your favorite moment. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because if this was the appetizer, just wait for the main course. Indiana Fever, the league just got warned.